What's going on, guys, and welcome to the ZooLab channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Sony ZVE-1. It's powerful, it's strong, it's mighty. There's some pros and cons, and I want to go over that in this video. So stay tuned, you're in for a good one.
This can't be real. Tryna play cool, but I got no chill. Running back, matter of fact, slow it down a little. Yeah, I am the highlight reel. Keep up with it. Keep up with it. You can't keep up with it. Come on. I am the highlight reel. I'm a poster, I'm a monster. Coast to coast, I'm going bonkers. Do the most, I'm get a sponsor. Everybody want a piece of the pie. Everybody wanna be the good guy, but I'm bad to the bone. Taking names, breaking ankles everywhere that I go. No mirage, I'm the real thing, don't you know? They said it can't be done, I'll do it again. Like every night, I make top 10. Look at me go, look at me go. Make your jaw drop, like whoa. Look at me go, look at me go.
Okay guys, so we are talking about the Sony ZVE-1. It's not a brand new camera, it's not an old camera. It's been out for a little over a year, and it's got some amazing features. Now, just like any camera, it has some pros and cons. This camera is not meant for every scenario or every situation. Now, I will talk about who this is for at the end of this video, so be sure to stay tuned. It has a 12 megapixel full frame CMOS sensor. It's actually the same exact sensor that you will find in Sony's cinema camera line with the FX6 and the FX3. The only difference with these sensors is this has an all new AI chip. So it basically has improved autofocus. So if you ever use the FX3 or FX6, you know how good the autofocus is on those cameras. Just imagine even better autofocus. That's what the ZVE-1 has. So there's plenty of draw, there's plenty of reasons why you would go with this camera over the FX3 or FX6. I love how Sony has this lineup of different types of cameras because they understand that not every camera is for every job. So you do have the FX6 that has a more robust body with more professional inputs like SDI and full size HDMI and more buttons on the side. And it's just a better camera for a larger production, a larger crew to work with. The Sony ZVE-1 is a one-man band type of camera. This should not be built out for a full-fledged production with a matte box and a V-mount battery. I mean, you would be putting it in a realm that it's not supposed to be in. So let me dive into some of the features this camera has, and hopefully it will paint the picture as far as, is this camera for you? Let's talk about the autofocus first. It's snappy, it's fast, it's honestly incredible. Again, like I said, this camera has an all new AI chip that just allows it to pick up on what you're putting down, so to speak. So for example, if you are shooting product and you are wanting to show the product off, you could turn on a feature called Product S&C mode. And essentially what that does is it allows you to put the product in front of the camera, but without having to put it right in front of the lens. Obviously, any autofocus camera can pick up a product that goes right in front of the center of the lens, because usually autofocus is center weighted or center focused. But this one is really smart. You can have it tracking your face, and as soon as you put a product up to the lens, even if you put it to the right or left side of the screen, it will pick it up. It's really smart. I even had a scenario where I had it on, the wide zone autofocus tracking, and I was shooting an event, and it was focused on a woman on the right side of the screen. And as soon as the woman on the left side of the screen turned and faced the camera and waved at it, it picked her up. So it's just really smart, and it understands what you're going for. And the face detection autofocus is also improved from the FX3 and FX6 and other Sony models as well. When you are facing the camera, you're doing you're doing a talking head or something. Let's say, for instance, you turn around. Well, the Sony ZVE-1 is smart enough to recognize other parts of your body so that it sticks to you. It could pick up a graphic on your t-shirt, or it could pick up your arm or a tattoo. It's absolutely wild. And when you turn back around, it continues to stick to you, your body, your, whatever part of your body. And as soon as you turn around, it'll connect right back to your face. So it's really, really smart. Another great feature is the stabilization. There's a couple stabilizer modes on here. There's 3 modes. So there's the standard stabilization mode that will reduce some shake if you're shooting with a wide angle lens, 24 mil up to 35 maybe, and you're pretty, still, you're not moving. You can get some pretty static and still looking shots. The next mode up is active. So this is if you are at still, the 24, if anything wider for sure, like 18 mil, you're gonna be pretty solid on stabilization. You can probably go up to 35. A couple scenarios, I was shooting an event for our church, and when I was in active mode, if I punched into like 70 mil and beyond that focal length, you start to see those ugly micro jitters. And then they have an all new stabilizer mode called dynamic active. And this is really solid. This is gimbal-like. If you are in a situation where you don't have the time to set up a gimbal, or you really just kind of want to get some stable shots while moving, man, this gives you that effect. I shot plenty of times at 70 mil, and obviously you're not panning or orbiting or walking around at 70 mil, but just standing there, standing as still as I can at 70 mil, I got some really stable shots. And I could really tell the difference between dynamic active mode at 70 mil and the standard or active modes. You really got those nasty micro jitters with the other stabilization modes. But when you turn it on to dynamic active, all of those micro jitters went away. So it's a really powerful tool to have. And I did some tests at 24 mil walking, like pretending I was a gimbal, and man, you get tight enough, you get that solid ninja walk, and man, you get some really stable shots. So really powerful tool to have in such a small camera body. Let's slow down a bit. You guys are wondering, like, what's the image quality like? You're talking about all these other features and this, that, and whatever. What about the image? The truth is, the image is incredible. It's stellar, top notch. Like I said, same sensor as the FX6, same sensor as the FX3, so you know what you're getting with this camera as far as image quality. Incredible color fidelity and flexibility in post with 10-bit color image. This is amongst the best of the best out there on the market today. Let's talk about handling, and that basically just means, how does it feel in the hands? Am I inspired to go out and shoot? Yes, and yes, I would say the handling is actually really solid. I love the grip that they have here. It's a pretty good size. It's a really small camera, so I had to kind of, get used to it coming from a, user of the Red Scarlet, which is a pretty big body. Like I said, with the autofocus features, the handling compared to the Red Scarlet is kind of a breath of fresh air because it is really small, compact. It doesn't stand out. I can go to a lunch with this thing. I can go shoot some BTS with this thing. I can go and be a little more discreet and get some banger images without having to haul around a big camera. And so, it is a breath of fresh air to have such a small body, and it's still feeling pretty comfortable. The build quality is solid, and the grip is really nice too. The buttons are also placed really, really well. Whatever orientation I'm filming with this thing, I feel like I can hit the record button with ease. As soon as this camera got in, I started customizing the buttons. Each dial and button on this camera is customizable to your preference. If you guys want to see a breakdown of how we set up this camera, how we configured each button, let us know in the comments down below. We'll be sure to make a video on that. The battery life on this little guy is actually pretty good. I shot 2 different events with this in the last few days, and I didn't even have to swap out the batteries. Didn't even have it plugged in either. So in a scenario where you are, starting and stopping recording, turning on and off the camera, kind of being cautious of your battery life and, shooting the whole time, as long as you aren't shooting any kind of long form interview or talking head or, just a podcast or something like that. If you're shooting an event covering, capturing B-roll and turning it on and off, the battery life is solid, and one battery honestly can last you at least an hour and a half, 2 hours. And as far as storage goes, The ZVE-1 has one SD card slot, and I know some of you guys scoff when I said that. Some of you pros out there are like, already clicked this video or didn't even click on the video because you think you're too good for this camera. Well, just wait. I'm gonna dive into it. I'm gonna dive into who this camera is for. Just wait. It does have one SD card slot, and you know, I've heard so many people, so many Joe pros out there that have said, well, it's got one SD card slot, camera's done, I can't use it in a professional setting. I get that. But again, like I said, this camera is not meant for a full-fledged feature film where you are shooting, you know, countless scenes throughout a 16-hour day or 12-hour day and expecting it to, you know, withstand that type of rigorous shoot. It's not that kind of camera. I only have one 128 gigabyte SD card in here. It's V60, 250 megabits a second. It's not the fastest card in the world, but you know, I was shooting 4K 60 on this thing, and I mean, I'll give you the full specs right here. You can get up to 2 hours and 22 minutes with a 128 gigabyte card, shooting 4K 24. If you go to 4K 60, you get around an hour, which isn't a ton, but who in their right mind is shooting 4K 60 for over an hour? Not me. I don't know anybody else that does. It's just not really, it's not something that you do. And so I think that's plenty of time. And if you absolutely need more time, you can mess around with the quality. You can go to movie settings, go down to record setting, and you can change this to, you could still shoot 422 10-bit, change it from 100 megabits to 50. And that will take your record time to over 3 hours. You know, again, this is a 128 gigabyte card. They have 500 gigs. They have 256, 1 terabyte. And they're not the fastest, but if you wanted to, you know, really use this thing in that scenario, you can. And storage is not an issue. The quality that this camera can capture in such an efficient codec like H.265, it can also shoot H.264. It's really, really efficient, and the file sizes are pretty small. So storage, not an issue. And if you really wanted to, you can attach an external monitor and attach an SSD to that monitor, and then you can shoot externally, and therefore extending your record time because SSDs are usually larger in size. The menu system is, as you guys know, is quite complicated. There's, especially with the ZVE-1, there's a lot of research that I had to do to figure out what some of the features mean, and you know, some of the AI and auto features that this camera has. And it kind of reminds me of the red menu system. The red menu system is quite complicated as well, but it's a lot of language that once you see it a couple times, you start to figure out, okay, I understand it now, and where things go, and setting up your, you know, your My Menu and all that good stuff. So you don't have to go through pages and pages of menus to find whatever you're looking for. So, you know, you can set up your My Menu so that, you know, if you're shooting B-roll and you need to change something really fast, well, you have your My Menu there for all the, you know, important, you know, settings that you need to change on the fly. Also, the ZVE-1 has a ton of touchscreen features. It has more buttons and settings and options on the actual screen, which at times can get a little crowded, and I really haven't figured out how to, I don't think there is a way to actually take all that away. Like, I wish on the display button that it would, because the display button cycles through some things that are in the middle of the screen. I wish, you know, it would give me an option to not display anything on the screen at times, because sometimes I want to see a clean image, but it is nice to have those features on the screen. And those buttons on the screen aren't customizable, so you can't change them. But I've used the record button plenty of times from the touch screen. The touch to focus is really nice. If I'm shooting a wide zone focus and it's not really picking up on what I want it to record, then I can easily just touch the screen and it'll lock in pretty quick and track exactly what I touched. So it's pretty neat. The audio from this camera is exceptional. This is actually audio coming directly out of camera right now. Now, obviously I did a little bit of post-processing just to pop the vocals a bit, but to be able to turn the camera around, flick it on, hit record, and to be able to grab such clean audio with your vlogs, without having to attach all these fancy microphones. Saves you time, it's more efficient, and it's just easier while you're on the go. It can pick up audio from the back. It can pick up audio when you're vlogging from the front. And it has an auto feature which picks up exactly where the audio is coming from. So you don't have to go in there and select, hey, I'm in the front, hey, I'm in the back. But you can also do that in the event that it's not really picking you up right. You can pick front, you can pick back, and the audio quality is top notch. I think it's good enough to do your vlogs or, do your quick BTS, breakdown of the shoot, whatever, and just turn the camera, talk to it, and it'll pick up some really clean audio. Obviously, it needs a little bit of post-production processing to really take it to the next level, but to be able to capture clean audio just straight out of camera without any mics is a huge plus for the ZVE-1. It also has a really cool feature called framing stabilizer. Now, I have used this type of feature in the past with the DJI Action 5. It basically punches in from a 4K image into a 1080p image, which allows, you lose a little bit of quality, but to the naked eye, they won't even really notice. And Sony's done a great job at, punching in on an image, like when you're using the clear image zoom, which I'll talk about in a second. You really don't lose any quality. I don't know what, something to do with the sensor, it compensates, somehow adds a little sharpening and denoising, whatever. I don't know what it does, but it keeps it really clean and crystal clear. It basically can track you. So if you're doing a talking head and you're wanting to, walk around a little bit, maybe you're doing a lecture or something and you're talking, you're moving to a board or, whatever, you can move around in the image and it'll track you as if you had a camera operator doing it for you. So it's really neat and a great feature to have if you intend on doing those types of instructional videos or educational videos. There is other really neat features for straight up beginner content creators that have never used a camera in their life or have used their iPhone and are coming from an iPhone to the ZVE-1. There is the intelligent auto mode. This is essentially a camera that allows your ZVE-1 to turn into your iPhone. I'm actually really impressed with the intelligent auto mode that, hey, shoot, if I'm wanting to pick up some quick content, I don't want to change settings, just throw it on that and hit record and you got a great looking image. I love how Sony jam-packed tons of features for not only the enthusiasts or beginners, but for the professionals as well. Another great feature that a lot of people don't really talk about, but something I really appreciate because coming from shooting with a Red Scarlet that has this feature, I know how important it is to my workflow. On the fly when I'm away from the studio, I still have an old, 2018 MacBook Pro that is the old chips, not even the M1, it's the Intel chip. That's pretty, it can bog down pretty quick. So when I'm editing on the go on that laptop, I have to have proxies, especially with an H.265 or H.264 codec. It's heavily compressed, so there's a lot of processing power that is required when I'm editing these types of files. So it's worth mentioning that this camera can shoot simultaneous proxy, which I know a lot of other YouTubers will not talk about. I'm talking about it. It's important to me. Maybe it's important to you, but it's an easy feature that you can turn on so that while you're recording your normal 4K 60 or 4K 24 or 4K 120, whatever, this camera will shoot a simultaneous proxy, almost a backup recording in a lower resolution, so that when you are putting this into your editor, Premiere, DaVinci, CapCut, I don't know, don't use CapCut. It won't work in CapCut, but your other editors, then you can easily sync up your proxy recording, your high-res 4K image, and work off of the proxy so that your computer isn't getting bogged down. So that's a huge plus for me, that this camera could shoot simultaneous proxies. There's also some cool presets in here that really speeds up my workflow and efficiency when I'm shooting. You can easily set presets in this camera, and they're basically called memory recalls. So on my memory recall 1, I have this camera set to 4K 24 with a shutter speed of 1/50. And on memory recall 2, I have this camera set to 4K 60 with the shutter speed at 1/125. So just by hitting a button or two, I can go from shooting in 24 frames to 60 frames, get some buttery slow motion. And another great feature is the clear zoom. Sony's known for their zoom rockers on their camera. It's a really fun feature. Before getting this camera, I definitely wasn't expecting to use the clear zoom, zoom rocker. But as soon as I started shooting with it, man, I actually started picking this thing up and zooming with it. It's a really nice feature, especially if you need just a little bit more reach. Basically, what it does is the camera sensor has this magic AI technology that cleans up your image. So when you are zooming in, and traditionally when you're just punching in and you're not using your lens, but you're using the camera to kind of do like a 1.5 or 2 times zoom, then it reduces your image quality because it's not an actual lens that's compressing and bringing your focal length forward. It's a digital zoom from the camera, but most digital zooms reduces the image quality. Well, with the clear image zoom on the Sony, your image quality pretty much remains the same. It's incredible, and it is a nice feature when you are shooting some B-roll and you want just a little bit of extra reach. Well, this gives you just that little bit of extra reach that I really appreciated in most scenarios. All right, all that lovey-dovey stuff about the ZVE-1 is over. Let's get into the negatives. There are a couple negatives. Starting off with the lack of the native ISO switch. I love that with the FX3, especially when you're shooting B-roll and you go from a lit environment to a dark environment and you need that quick switch of the ISO to go from 800 to 12,800. Well, unfortunately, this camera doesn't have it for whatever reason. It literally takes just a firmware update that I'm hoping they do in the future, because that's an easy update. That's an easy feature to add. But for whatever reason, they don't have that in the ZVE-1. You can set your ISO to a dial. You can either, dial all the way to 12,800. It's usually going to take this amount of time. Okay, I'm at 12,800. And that's just a couple seconds that, over time, you have to keep doing if you're going in and out of lit to dark environments. You have to keep doing, which is a little frustrating and annoying. It's nice to just hit one button on the FX3. It's one button, boom, you're 12,800. It's just a small, tedious task that you have to do every time you want to adjust your native ISOs. And I mentioned this before when using some of the other stabilization modes. There's some pretty nasty micro jitters when you are shooting handheld at like 50 mil, 75 mil. Micro jitters they're real. So just be aware that if you are shooting handheld B-roll and you are wanting to zoom into those types of tighter focal lengths, make sure you are on dynamic active. I did some testing out in the real world, shooting some events, and I did notice those micro jitters on the standard and dynamic stabilization modes. But as soon as I turned on dynamic active mode, the stabilization was lock solid, the jitters were gone, and I was able to shoot handheld at 70 mil, which was really nice. Now, the drawback to that is you can't use the clear image zoom when you are using the dynamic active stabilization mode. So I ran into that issue a couple times where I was trying to use the clear zoom, but I had the dynamic active stabilization mode switched on. And so then I had to go and turn the stabilization mode back to standard or active. I usually never use standard. I put it to active, and then I can use the clear image zoom. But then you introduce the micro jitters because you are zooming in on the lens and also doing the clear image zoom. That's the only time I would use the clear image zoom, is if I'm maxed out focal length wise on my lens and I want to add a little bit more reach. I would recommend having this on a tripod if you are wanting to use the clear image zoom, because you will get those micro jitters with anything other than the dynamic active stabilization mode turned on. And I know most of you guys are like, yo, why aren't you talking about the overheating issues? Just wait, I got that towards the end of this video. I do want to talk about a couple more cons with the ZVE-1. Another con could easily be fixed with a firmware update, and that's shutter angle. Having a shutter angle option will take away the tedious task of having to change your shutter speed every time you want to change your frame rate. And I mentioned earlier in this video about the memory recall presets. My memory recall presets change the shutter speed automatically for me, but if you don't have any presets set up and you want to change from 24 frames to 60 frames or to 120 frames, we always have to make sure your shutter speed is double your frame rate. So then you're having to, not only are you having to change your frame rate, well, then you're having to change your shutter speed. But if you're working with shutter angle, well, that just stays at 180. Unless you're doing something creative and slow, a slow shutter effect, then you can just leave it at 180 degrees and you can cycle through your frame rates a whole lot faster. And it's just one less thing to think about. So maybe Sony will add that into the next firmware update. Another con is, could be a deal breaker for some of you. It's not for me, but it does kind of climb up a little bit on the list as far as wants in maybe the ZVE-2 is a full-size HDMI. I've had plenty of cameras with the micro HDMI that this one also has, and man, those are finicky, they break, they're not very reliable. Sometimes the connection will go in and out just by moving the cable. And so, I mean, honestly, with the big grip on the side, they could have gone the route like they did with the FX3, where the grip has the SD card and you can just, pull it out and open it and you throw your SD card on the side, on the right side, and on the left side, they could have put the full-size HDMI. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just saying, maybe they can have it in the ZVE-2. All right, let's talk about the overheating issue. I've had two different experiences with this issue. Number one, on one hand, I had zero overheating issues. I was shooting an event, my record time was 40 minutes. I was in a pretty cool, normal temperature environment. And in another experience, I was using this camera for a podcast that was roughly around 90 minutes, but the room was pretty muggy, pretty warm, maybe around like 78 degrees. And it definitely did not pass the test in that environment. The overheating issues were abysmal. They were very, very noticeable. And the camera actually turned off like 6 times. And before we actually swapped it mid-podcast, thankfully it wasn't our A cam. So we were able to actually swap it and keep the podcast going and we didn't have to disrupt the flow. We did have the auto power temperature to high instead of standard. Actually, in that environment, in the same podcast shoot, the FX3 was our 8 cam and that actually shut off due to overheating issues. So it was a little warm in there. Like I said, it wasn't extremely hot. It wasn't crazy. It wasn't outdoor or anything. But as soon as the FX3 turned back on, it prompted us to turn the auto power off setting to high, because we never did that. It never prompted us. This camera, as soon as I turned it on, prompted me to set it to high, which I did. And then with the FX3, as soon as we put it on high, it didn't turn off again. And I don't predict that camera having that issue ever again, as far as being in a normal, room temperature environments. But I do have a resolution. As some of you guys know, you can put a fan on the back of the LCD screen. So you just flip out the LCD screen and you can put a fan right here in the middle. You can clip one on. There's some that screw in somehow. But essentially, as soon as the shoot ended, I jumped onto Amazon and grabbed a small rig fan, and I did some thorough tests. I did a test in my garage, and it's pretty warm. It's about 85 degrees outside, a little humid, a little muggy, and I did some thorough overheating tests in my garage with the ZVE-1 with the add-on small rig fan, and I'm pleased to tell you that with either one of the fan modes, whether it was the auto or the turbo, which you wouldn't need because I didn't need for the auto mode, the tests came back successful. I had no overheating issues. It literally just ran until the memory card ran out. So I am pleased to say that with the fan, this camera is capable of being in a talking head interview podcast environment for long form content. Okay guys, that is my review on the Sony ZVE-1. Like I said, this camera has so many capabilities. The image quality is phenomenal. The autofocus is outstanding. The stabilization is gimbal-like. The type of quality and images that you can get from this little camera just blows my mind as far as where the tech is nowadays. Sony definitely did a great job in crafting this camera and really fitting it into a mold that the FX3 or the FX6, the Venice, the more professional pro cameras that are used on, larger sets cannot reach. This camera can literally be in an environment or a situation that those other bigger cameras cannot be in. Let's say, for instance, you're shooting a feature film, a documentary, a narrative piece that is going to be played on large screens, and you're shooting your main camera as your Sony Venice. Well, maybe you want a really like cool POV shot of someone driving, or someone's, you know, moving something from one table to the other, or someone's cooking, or like you just want a cool top-down shot. Well, this camera is a great fit for that because it has such an incredible image. You can literally put this in those tight environments that you wouldn't be able to put, or you would be able to, but it would just take so long to rig up and put overhead and put a speed rail and, you know, big crazy rig overhead, which gets a little dangerous. And this really does fit into that environment. And not only that environment, like I said, there's tons of auto features that will really make it comfortable for beginner users, almost like you're using your iPhone. It's just a massive step up from an iPhone. And if you are a YouTuber, if you're vlogging, if you are shooting run and gun B-roll and you're getting quick pickup B-roll shots, stop and starting recording, this is a great camera for that environment. The microphone is outstanding. You can literally just turn it around, hit record, and start talking to it. And you're gonna get amazing content. So the big question is, who is this camera for? I don't think there's a clear answer. You can't put this camera in a box. I dislike when other YouTubers like, man, you know, this is a great camera for beginners, but for pros, not for me. I think this can fit in the realm of the professional. You got your A cam, but you need a small B cam, crash cam. This is it. You're a beginner and you are just coming from an iPhone and you have no clue how to use a camera. This is it. If you are a professional, like myself and Dean and our crew, where we are constantly shooting different types of content. We're shooting fitness, we're shooting corporate interviews, we're shooting podcasts, we're shooting a documentary, we're shooting a high-end commercial. This camera fits the bill. It can literally fit in your pocket and fit in a small bag. You can travel with it. What I'm gonna use this camera for is for this YouTube channel, for my BTS, when we're out on the go traveling and I wanna document our projects and our lighting setup. Shoot, just easily turn this camera around, vlog with it, grab some cool B-roll. Hey, if we're shooting an event for a top dollar client, well, I know I got my A cam, my Red Scarlet or Red Komodo we use all the time, but I also have this for a B cam if I want to save my back and I want to get some details of, you know, the event or some sick B-roll that I couldn't otherwise get with my bigger rig. We'll just pick this little guy up and go get it. Like I said, you can't fit this in a box. It's meant for the beginners, enthusiasts, and pros alike. If some of you guys out there have used this camera for way longer than we have, and you know, maybe we missed something, a feature or technique with this camera, menu configuration, drop it in the comments down below. Let us know, and let us know what you guys want us to do next with the Sony ZVE-1, because we plan on keeping this in the bag. We plan on keeping this in the rotation. If you guys want to pick up a Sony ZVE-1, we'll have a link in the description down below, and anything you guys purchase from those links down below will just give us a little kickback. So we would appreciate it if you guys wanted to pick this camera up, do it through the links. And just a disclaimer, Sony didn't sponsor this video. They didn't even send us this camera. We got this camera with our own money. So these words are raw, organic, and just from our real world experience of using the Sony ZVE-1 out in the real world. Hey, we appreciate you guys a ton for tuning in. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button if you like this video, hit the thumbs up button, share it to your friends, family, and we appreciate you guys a ton, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.